Hi everyone, my name is Miracle Inameti-Archibong. I'm an in-house SEO consultant, and this is my tip for SEO in 2024.
Miracle, what is your number one SEO tip for 2024?
This year, I'm talking about brand SEO, and this is a topic that I've recently become so passionate about. I think with the onset of AI, the market is going to get so saturated. I mean, it's going to be crazy. And I've already started seeing loads and loads of people jumping on like brand SEO because it's just so super important at this time. I think we see the kind of culture of the young, they don't use terrestrial TV. They get their news from like a super specific source. Everyone has really strong feelings about who they are and then really looking for brands that kind of speak and tap into those social feelings. And there's going to be such a mistrust, but there is already a growing mistrust for like all of the content flow that we're having and the kind of saturation and, it's coming up from us left, right and center. And we can see that with Google helpful content, Google is moving more and more towards like verifying sources, getting people with experience, all of those things. I mean, recently they started verifying like medical information on YouTube because people are getting their information from a diversity of sources. And yes, there's a lot available, but people are hinging on, I only get my news from this YouTube channel and it's really alarming. And so there's so much pressure on them to make sure that there is credibility. And this is where brands need to be placing in that the kind of old chase for like generic keywords, that's gone. Forget about that. Be hyper focused on who you are and what your audience wants. Be hyper-focused on that.
So forget about generic keyword phrases. It's all about brand SEO. So what does brand SEO actually mean in practice? And how do you drive organic visits as a result?
Okay. So obviously you can't totally forget about generic keywords. However, it is sticking to your niche. Thinking about what do I offer? What products do I offer? Now, for example, in the past, we used to see, when I worked in insurance, we used to see like someone will search, well, maybe you offer pet insurance, but you only cover one pet. And someone will search for multi-pet insurance. And then you will see a brand come to the top of the set because they're a big brand. And then they will say, looking for multi-pet insurance. Although we don't offer it, you can't get away with those kind of things anymore. You need to be focused on what are my cause. And before it used to be that everyone will spread what, you go after all the generic, anything that is like literally 100 feet from what you do, you will go after it.
Sorry, I'm just thinking, I'm thinking back into when I was involved in SEO 20 years ago and the kind of things that you used to have in meta keywords to attempt to actually rank your site for nothing to do with the content.
Yeah, it really I think we're reaching now. We're reaching and AI is only going to get worse because people can write quicker, they can write faster. I would say when you're doing your keyword research now, go to social media. That is the place to be doing your keyword research. I mean, Carrie Rose gave a really interesting presentation at MozCon about how she has been using social media to kind of go to social media, see what's trending, make sure it's optimized on the client side, kind of go to PR and say, we have this amazing thing, and because it's trending, jump to P1 and get loads of sales from it. I think that's really interesting. For me, what I have been doing with my brands is that because of the industry I work in, I have been going to forums, I have been looking at Trustpilot, like what are people saying? And I said this last year, but what I've been doing is not just thinking about that brand reputation, but translating it into content. I think a practical example of this is Monzo. I love what Monzo is doing with their content. They are getting their employees, they're getting customers to write for them on how they're using Monzo to solve their debt problem, how they're using Monzo savings to save for a festival. There's one about, how my husband and I, split our bills, like the emotional complication of paying bills. And it's really about getting your customers to come to you. Because the generic market is so flooded. I mean, in my MozCon presentation, I talk about when I did it this year, I talked about going to the SEP and searching for quotes on love and then getting served with like 4 million. And I'm like, oh my days, like, how do I navigate? How do I know which one, So you want to like instill loyalty in your customers. You want them to come directly to you. You want them to be thinking, oh, I know this brand. This brand has the same kind of social ethos I know. This brand always offers what I'm looking for. Then they come to your site and then they do that search. So it's building that trust and making them come to you. That is going to be one of the key things.
So to begin with, from a content perspective, decide what content you should be publishing based upon the products that you offer as a business and what your brand represents, and focus solely on that and enhance the content that you got in relation to the relevant keyword phrases in relation to your products, but then get your users to be involved in the production of your content as well. So do you have to reach out to users? Do you have to kind of proactively push users to create content for you? Or if you have a wonderful product, will users naturally just write on your behalf?
I don't think users will just naturally, like, they might write on social media, they might write on forums, but if you can't find those people or people who are leaving feedback on Trustpilot and get them to write for you, that's one way. Another way is loads of brands offer incentive to employees. Like, or, if I work for John Lewis, I'd get 25% off, and so I would naturally buy stuff from them. Those are all people within your organization that can write for you. That's what Monzo does as well. They use a lot of their employees that are using their Monzo cards in ways that the general population can use it. Another thing is look for writers that already have EAT. So if you're offering a certain thing, for instance, if I look at the SEO world, then think about like using someone like Chima, who speaks a lot about content, to write content for you about SEO content, you will see that automatically that would have weight. So search out, don't just go and look for like generic writers. Search for writers that already have EAT in that category.
And how do you measure that? How do you find a writer that has that EAT? Is it all about social followers, or are there better metrics that you can look at?
I look at what they've written in the wild. So I will Google a writer, look at their profile, look at where their bylines are. Really super important to see that they have bylines elsewhere, and the bylines all correlate to the topics they're writing on. And that's what I'll do. And then get your people trained. If you run a small website and that website is about, one of the things that we did is that we ran a website that talks about hair. And then we got the writers to go on a trichology course and get them, and then they are qualified trichologists and they can give advice, and they can give, advice or opinion on that. And then start, you yourself start building the EAT of your writers. I encourage my writers to have at least half a day or a day where they tune out and say, I'm going to do some research on how to get my byline into publications that are talking about the things I'm writing on. It's in your interest if your writers build their profile. If there's any training courses, you can send them on. And I think most important is to get them to have bylines in publications that offer the same kind of things you do, and build their EAT.
So how does brand SEO interplay with search generative experience and AI results?
I mean, it's not really in the UK now, and I haven't really seen like the write-ups and the stuff, so I haven't really played with it. But from what I see, and from the way, like search engines exist to make money, isn't it? So there's going to be paid search, and then there's going to be SEG, and then organic search results. Literally, organic is just going to go lower and lower and lower. And then all the things that makes Google pull your result into SEG is that trust, isn't it? Trust. So it's all about building your brand trust so that you are considered for SEG. It's the same metrics around trust, EAT, that gets fed into SEG. If your brand is not a reputable brand, if it doesn't have EAT, it's not going to get pulled in the SEG result. It's all about appearing as high as you can, because organic search results are going to drop lower. And so, especially for brand, paid search spend is going to go up. And that was, I talked about this in my most talk. Paid search spend is going to go through the roof, because as the organic search space gets more and more competitive, visibility drops, because there's more and more things that are taken. There is like map packs. There are so many features in the SERP. And that's fine. Google exists to service users what they want. So you need to get yourself in that space where you're able to end those SGE results if you're not able to earn it, then you need to make sure that you're doing enough so that you build your customer loyalty and your people search directly for your brand. So those are things that you need to start thinking about in that space, getting people to come directly to you. Another thing is really super interesting that he got leaked about, Google using users' clicks, because one of the things I talked about in my Moscow presentation from my rudimentary experiment, the greatest rudimentary experiment that I did in the industry I was working on, not only in the industry, I did in the fashion industry as well, on how when you see a brand, so for instance, now I sell, dresses, when I do like brand plus dresses, the brand that usually has the highest search volume in that niche is usually in P1. And I see time and time again, because Google exists or search engines exist to give their users what they want. If your demand is naturally high, you will come out stronger in the organic SERP. And I see loads and loads and loads of people like, even just that's one thing, that's a different thing in terms of driving demand, making your brand front of mind and how that affects organic SERP. Really interesting to see that Moz has launched like a brand authority metric to see how your brand is tracking amongst competitors, the strength of your brand. That's really interesting. Another part to that as well is that there are loads of people who have gone after generic so much that they've literally forgotten their brand. Users come to you and then they're coming to you again because the search habit has changed. People talk about, like you speak to a lot of UX people and they're talking about journeys, like when someone lands on the homepage, I'm like, nobody searches that way anymore. Everybody will go and type, if they know the brand they want to use, they will go and type in the SERP. Most people, not everyone, correct. Most people will go to the SERP and type branding plus query, and they expect a page to surface for that. And we have gotten so hyper-focused on generic keyword that a lot of brands are not covering that. As part of my example, I used Expedia. Expedia was bidding on a PPC keyword that was like how to make ticket bookings through Expedia. They had no organic page ranking for that keyword. They were spending money bidding on PPC, and it was I can't remember the name of the website that was creating generic content that was ranking in P1 for that query, because they had created not only a blog post, they had a video on a step-by-step process to book tickets through Expedia. So it's all of those things where we need to start, big brands need to start thinking about, just stop focusing on generic keywords and start thinking more and more about your returning customers or how to serve them, because they will have a higher conversion rate, and smaller brands, it's going to be so competitive. You need to build that niche for yourself. If you're getting any kind of agency or something that's coming to you and saying now, we need to cover all of this length and breadth and go after every generic keyword, you need to be very suspect, because you need to be very suspect. I mean, Ross gave an interesting talk about, he was saying about like tech brands that were generating like 500 pieces of content a year using AI. And I was like, oh my God, this was in Seattle. And I was like, how many tech brands are there? Imagine there are 1,000 tech brands, times that by 5. I mean, we're all just going to be drowning. It's like our attention spans are getting lower. There's just so much saturation. We just need to start funneling narrower and be more specific.
Look, this all makes great sense, but it's a nightmare for analytics, isn't it? I mean, you're talking about customers coming directly to you, and we're talking about search generative experience and people getting AI results directly, and then maybe making a decision to visit a brand because of that. Is it still SEO? And how do you actually measure the value of brand SEO?
Is it still SEO? We've been asking that question since I started, when it was like page titles and that, and then speed became a metric and we all went tech. Before it was just like on-page link building, and then, speed, became a metric and we all went tech, and then we were like going into the code and everyone said, is this still SEO? SEO is a fascinating industry because of how much it evolves. This is where it's going, and you have to get on board with it. I mean, I'm collaborating quite closely with brand teams in a way that I never did. I'm collaborating with product teams in a way I never did, because I'm like, the developer knows how to fix the thing that is broken, but the product team is the one that's creating the feature in the first place. So if I'm liaising with them, before it even gets built, I'm getting all my requirements in there and then getting the developers to scope it out. So the way we work would always change and evolve. And that's the nature of the industry. And if you don't move with it, then you're going to get, left behind. And tracking it, I mean, as marketers, I listened to, I think, is it Roy? And he said, we've really, I mean, it's great because, SEO budget is always the first being pulled. We got really super into like tracking data, but we need to get used to thinking about the integrative search experience, doing tests with PPC to think about, because I recently started, managing PPC team, and I've started thinking about like incremental tests and thinking about the incremental value of every channel, looking at combined CPAs. However, in the very practical term of how you measure this tomorrow, because these are all like blue sky thinking, direct traffic, increase in brand search, increase in brand plus product searches, which is like direct growth in awareness, isn't it? So those are all the things that you track. Number of returning customers, conversion rate of returning customers. So those are the practical ones that you can do now. The rest is all like in 2004. This is where everyone will be thinking about all of those things, because we have to evolve and get better at showing like incremental value when we step away from like this specific keyword and this specific page and all of these kind of things.
You obviously meant 2024 as opposed to 2004.
Sorry. I'm taking us back like 19 how many years, but I can't even do math. I was going to say 19 years and I was like, is it 20? I don't know.
You certainly shared a lot of great advice there. Look, if an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest in 2024?
I would say stop chasing those generic keywords that are so far-fetched from what you do, just because they're somewhat related to your industry. And that will save you so much time. Instead, go to your content, do an audit, prune anything that is not adding value, and then focus on those things that are within your niche and the things that, you know that this is exactly what we offer, and think about how you can enhance them. I think it's more beyond, like if you've written the pages ranking in P1, go and work with your media teams or your social media team. Say, how can we create YouTube shorts for this? It's added value. You need to start thinking more and more about, because everyone's like, okay, I've covered this, we don't have, we have 20 top keywords or 30 or 100 and we've done all of it. Then think about how you can repurpose that content, YouTube shorts. Like, what else can I do to add value? I think this is where people usually struggle, because we like to stay in our niche, but we have to get more innovative, which is fun, which is what SEO is about.
Miracle Inameti-Archibong is head of SEO at John Lewis Finance, and you can find her over at miracleinameti-archibong.com. Miracle, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2024.
Thank you.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2024, the book, over at seoin2024.com.